In this week's Division I AA poll, Jackson State is ranked 16th. Alcorn State had the highest attendance for an HBCU football game over the weekend. A crowd of 49,158 showed up for Alcorn's loss at Mississippi State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
The blackness. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Blackness. Keep on. Never say die. Keep on. Blackness. Never say die. Never say die. Keep on. Never say die. Blackness. Never say die. All the lyrics.
When in the midst of sorrow, you can see up and looking down. A brighter day tomorrow will bring. You hear the voice of reason telling you this can never be done. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to your dreams, yeah. Although it seems you never win, you will always have to dance. As long as you keep your head to the sky, can we? As long as you keep your head to the sky, you can win. As long as you keep.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and White House correspondent, joining you from the White House today. I'm in touch, and so you stay in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the socials at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, download the KBLA app if you haven't already, and subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, the Associated Press is reporting that the suspect in the Charlie Kirk killing has been charged with aggravated murder and weapon and obstruction offenses. Tyler Robinson, the man accused of assassinating conservative activist Charlie Kirk at a Utah university, was charged today with aggravated murder. The charge means that Robinson could face the death penalty if convicted of killing Kirk last week at Utah Valley University in Orem, about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City. Kirk was gunned down on September 10th as he spoke with students and died soon after. Prosecutors allege that Tyler Robinson shot Kirk in the neck with a bolt-action rifle from the roof of a nearby campus building. Keeping with the fallout from the murder of Charlie Kirk, Washington Post is reporting that more employers are firing workers over Kirk post as pressure from the right mounts. The wave of companies and other institutions firing or suspending employees over what they've said in a reaction to last week's killing of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk has expanded in recent days as some of his supporters inside and outside of government amp up a push against speech that they say crosses the line. Several U.S. airlines, Office Depot, and NASDAQ, so that they were among more than 30 employers who have sanctioned or fired employees in reaction to their statements about Kirk's killing. Roughly 36 workers are reported to have been suspended or fired over their response to Kirk's killing, including employees of Clemson University, MSNBC, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and the Carolina Panthers, several local fire departments and school districts. So they had also suspended or terminated employees over their remarks. You might remember on Monday, while hosting Kirk's podcast, Vice President Vance suggested that people tell bosses if they see someone celebrating Kirk's killing. saying, quotes, "When you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out, and hell, call their employer." When we come forward, we are switching gears. I am excited to welcome two incredible filmmakers. One executive producer and showrunner of a documentary that's been 20 years in the making about Hurricane Katrina. And a little bit later, you'll have a chance to hear from Andre Holland, the star of the hit film Love Brooklyn. He's also a producer on that film, and he's got a lot to say about that project and more. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Healing is possible with Tremfya. Approximately 3 out of 10 patients were in endoscopic remission at 1 year, based on areas visualized on colonoscopy, which may not represent the deeper bowel layer or entire GI tract. Individual results may vary. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
We have no permanent friends or permanent enemies. Only permanent interests. As we effort to build a more perfect union.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's such a joy to be in conversation with Elisa Payne. She is the showrunner, the powerhouse that has helped to bring a really important film to our devices. I'm talking about a film about the anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and its landfall. It's hard to believe it marks 20 years since that devastating storm hit the Gulf Coast. We have an opportunity to reflect through this new Netflix series called Katrina, Come Hell and High Water. It's been #1 in the U.S. for almost a week, and it's been getting rave reviews. It's a powerful look at not only what happened 20 years ago, but what hasn't changed. It's my honor to welcome the showrunner and producer Elisa Payne to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to use that with my team, a powerhouse.
I'm just calling it how I see it. Just calling it how I see it.
I'm going to call it how you see it too.
I love it. I'm in good company. And so for folks who are less familiar, this is a story of just that brutal hurricane that turned cataclysmic, and through human error and neglect. What made you and the team decide that now is the time to remind folks not just of this tragic story, but the human error and neglect that led to the human cost?
Yeah, so Hurricane Katrina was a hurricane, as you said, that hit Mississippi. There were lives lost in Mississippi, in New Orleans, etc. But what really made it particularly devastating was the man-made aspect, the fact that the government, the Corps of Engineers levees broke and did not protect the citizens. There was a simulation the year before that they had done, the Corps of Engineers had done before Hurricane Pam, that said if we got anything more in New Orleans than a Category 3, that it would yield devastating results. And so it was important for us to say that this was not just happenstance. This was not just a natural disaster. And we're seeing more and more natural disasters. It was really important for our team to make sure that we highlighted that this was exacerbated by government neglect and systemic racism. And so when Netflix came to myself and my partners at Message Pictures, Sam Pollard and Geeta Gondavere, it was a no-brainer. They had Geeta, Sam Pollard, and Spike Lee had previously done When the Levees Broke and If God's Willing and The Creek Don't Rise. And so we were so happy to revisit it along with him through our own company.
And talk to us about uh, where New Orleans stands today. As I mentioned at the top, it's been 20 years since Hurricane Katrina made landfall. Has New Orleans uh, learned its lesson? If this were to happen again today, would we avert this epic sort of disaster, or might history repeat itself?
History will definitely repeat itself, right? So what we see in New Orleans is a few things. Yes, there is not the level of preparedness that needs to happen. Those levees have been repaired, but they have not been built high enough to sustain a Category 5 hurricane. And we see that due to climate change, that these hurricanes are coming in this hurricane zone more powerfully and more frequently than ever before. In addition to that, we also see that New Orleans has not been rebuilt for the people who have generations and generations of family there. And so areas like the Ninth Ward, New Orleans East, have all been decimated and not been rebuilt because FEMA and the government did not give these people the amount of money that they needed to rebuild them. And so on one hand, you see that, yes, it will happen again because we're decimating FEMA right now. Right, we're taking away funds. We're trying to actually get rid of it. Not we, but the current administration is trying to get rid of it. And then we also have left people very vulnerable in New Orleans still 20 years later.
Yeah, you mentioned the current administration. I can't help but remind our leaders, learners, and listeners that the current administration wants to do away with FEMA, certainly as we've known it. And we know that there are so many of our fellow Americans, so many of our neighbors that depend on FEMA when there is a natural disaster. A lot of people do not have a lot of emergency savings to be able to, pick up and move, even when there's a threat of a hurricane or a tornado or some sort of natural disaster. And so that is at least part of the reason why people may choose to wait it out. Certainly, that was the case when it came to Hurricane Katrina. Talk to us about any insights that were gleaned while shooting this documentary, talking to folks, who are concerned that the little bit of support they might get from FEMA for the next one may not be there.
Well, a couple of things. It's very important to say that the residents of Orleans Parish, which is New Orleans, did not get the mandatory evacuation notice until 36 hours before. So we'd like to think that these people who look like you and I just sat there and they weren't trying to leave. But again, as one of our participants, Adenike Landry, says, it is done systematically, right? So you have to clear parish by parish. There's only one road in and one road out. If everybody gets onto the road at the same time, which happened, you are sitting in a parking lot and you are a sitting duck, right? So that's really important to say. But what we see from what we hear from New Orleanians now is that the government has used this. The government and local officials has used this hurricane as a way to do land grabs, right? As a way to gentrify New Orleans and not help the people. And so, yes, we see now that FEMA has been decimated. It's important for people to know that FEMA doesn't just do disaster recovery. FEMA is also supposed to do disaster preparedness. So when I mentioned, Hurricane Pam, the simulation, that was FEMA and the Corps of Engineers who did that. And what they're supposed to do when they do these types of things is then act upon those findings, which they did not. And so 21 years ago, because that was done the year before Hurricane Katrina, there was intel that these flood walls that were made to withstand a Category 3 hurricane would not sustain a hurricane of a Category 5. They were not tall enough or strong enough. And these types of things need to be maintained. We see that all the time with bridges, right? If a bridge is not maintained, it will implode. So these things have to be maintained. The other thing that FEMA does, and I live in New York, and I have insurance on my home, and I was told, we don't, I'm on high land, and I'm told we don't do flood insurance anymore. You have to get it through FEMA. So people depending on where you live. And I'm in New York, yes. I'm in New York and I couldn't get flood insurance. I had to get it through FEMA. So what then happens? I'm paying my good money to FEMA for this insurance if you disband it, right? And so I think that's the thing. And this denial, it's so um it is so heartless to break up to try to get rid of FEMA after, because it's one thing, what we understand from Hurricane Katrina is that New Orleans was an 80% Black city. So it's fine. Some people in this country feel that it's okay to ignore them because they don't look like them. However, what we see is that natural disasters do not discriminate. And so when we see flooding in Houston, in Texas, when we see landslides in in North Carolina, in Georgia, when we see that celebrities' homes are burning down and no one can stop it and no amount of money can stop that, we see that natural disasters do not discriminate. And so it's one thing when we're saying, okay, we're pretending like the only ones who get helped are people that look like you and I, but in actuality, it's all Americans, and we should all be incensed.
I mean, we see that playing out in Los Angeles, where our home station is located, KBLA, with the wildfires and the
Yeah.
recovery from the wildfires and the attention that the Palisades is getting versus Altadena.
Oh.
Altadena being a predominantly black and more multicultural neighborhood compared to the Palisades. In fact, we just saw the federal government, the Senate, is preparing to launch an investigation into the fire in the Pacific Palisades, but they didn't make any mention of Altadena, and so
But we also, I mean, there's so many parallels. Wendell Pierce, who's in this, the actor, he is both a New Orleans resident and a California resident. And he and I were talking about Altadena and New Orleans and how are there parallels? And it's the same thing, right? FEMA is making sure, and the government is making sure that people who live in Altadena have so many barriers to getting aid and rebuilding. Barriers like excessive paperwork. Now you have to have an email to get rebuilt. You also, then when they do say that you can get funding, even though, as Honorary General Honore says in our piece, even though the 2x2s, the 2x4s cost the same amount of money, because they are basing what they give you on the appraisal value, which is going to be lower because you live in a neighborhood that's Black and brown and they don't value us. They're going to give you less instead of giving you the cost it would take for you to rebuild. And so again, we see people that can't come back to their communities because they don't have the means. And they have essentially been cheated out of what they should get because other people are getting what they deserve.
Elisa, was there a mission statement for the series? I mean, there are so many layers and so many elements to the story around what happened and what didn't happen, quite frankly, in New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina made landfall. There's so many directions you could have taken the series. Talk to us about your mission statement. What was your North Star for this series?
Um, our point of view, our mission statement was very clear. In a post George Floyd, Breonna Taylor world, where we have the language of systemic racism, in a world where previously we thought that it was post-Obama we're in a post-racial society, and then we see the backlash of this current administration. We understand that people that are Black and brown or poor, because Soledad O'Brien said it didn't make it into the piece, that America does not like Black people or poor people. And oftentimes we see, unfortunately, that a lot of white people that are, disadvantaged economically will vote against their own self-interest to harm other people. And so Our North Star was we need to point out the systemic racism and neglect. We need to say that this was a man made disaster. We need to say that if we do not learn the lessons, we will perpetuate it.
Is it true that you carefully chose people who ended up in different places geographically during the storm itself, and that the days after the levee broke from the Superdome to the convention center to literally the side of the road, you had so many different POVs that really provide the kind of 360 that I don't think we've seen on the screen documenting Katrina?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it was very important to us. I had spoken to Stella Jones, who owns a gallery, and she said, "Elisa, I hope that you all get it right." And it was so important for us to get it right. But how do you get it right? There's a lot of focus, like Soledad said, after the storm, everybody thought that it had passed, and they were focused on the French Quarter. Meanwhile, the lowest land, the Ninth Ward, was flooded, and later, New Orleans East, et cetera. And so what we wanted to make sure that was that we did not have that short-sightedness where we were focused at one place, where there was so much diversity of stories, right? And we see, like the Lieutenant Governor, Mitch Landrieu, out there helping people. We also wanted to talk about the project structures because they had knocked those down, but there was not a lot of damage done. And so the real damage happens after you knock it down and generations of families get split up. And all of that community that these people once had is gone. And so it was really important for us to approach it from different places. Who's in the Superdome? Who was at the convention center? Who got sent to Houston? How did all of these people have these similar but different experiences, and how do we translate it to America to understand what could happen if we don't? And not only in New Orleans, it's very important to say that because we said earlier, we talked about other natural disasters, not only New Orleans. If we do not learn these lessons, if we do not stop acting so divisively, we are all going to be harmed.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, no true word spoken there. Elisa, in our remaining minutes, I would be crazy to not ask you, how did this series change you as a filmmaker? How did it change you as a human being?
I mean, listen, after it was on air, I bawled crying. You know, it's so interesting. You cannot go to New Orleans and not love the people. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so we have a certain type of regional pride. And as much as I'm from Brooklyn,
Yeah.
I just, you just fall in love with the people. And what you see and the ways that I've been changed is so interesting that you asked that question because I've been talking to my team about it. If these people could come out of what they have come out of, some of them never returning to New Orleans, right? And still have this same type of joy and and still be the purveyors of their culture and history, then it isn't, I cannot be fearful, right? Or downtrodden and not be and not tell my story, and tell their stories and tell other people's stories. And so I just felt I was so, because people talk about the fact that their spirit is so indomitable. It is. And I don't want to say that they're resilient, because resilient means that there was some type of rebuilding and some of them are still struggling. But at the end of the day, New Orleanians have this great joy and implicit history in them, and they will not let that be erased. And at a time when our history is trying to be erased, it is important that, and I've always known this, that we stand up, but also I have to approach it in a way that they approach it, right, where it's absolutely true, and I'm not going to let your stuff bring me down. And so that's how I've changed, because this is heavy, hard work. And you can allow it to do everything from make you gain weight to not want to get out of bed.
I know that. I know that feeling. Hard work is good work. I'm thinking about a conversation I had with my high school best friend recently, Jazz Summers. He's making his directorial debut in October with his film Stay, and he's always been a big fan of Spike Lee. Such a
Mhm.
big fan since Malcolm X, watching Malcolm X at the age of 8. He has a tattoo of X on his shoulder because that film inspired him so much. Talk to us about what it meant for you as a filmmaker to be able to work with the great Spike Lee, who, for folks who are less familiar, Spike directs episode 103, the last story in the series. He's also executive producer of Come Hell and High Water, which was released globally on Netflix.
So Spike and I have a lot in common in terms of the fact that I'm Grenadian and so Malcolm X is half Grenadian. And so there's a lot of love that we have for Malcolm X shared. We're both from Brooklyn. I used to go to Brooklyn Technical High School, which is a block away from his house. And we'd see each other all the time. But I was like, oh, there's Spike Lee. And he didn't know me. What was really heartening and brought me great joy was to see Spike on set and to see that he had maintained relationships with these people, some of which he had known for 20 years. He knew their children. To see the reception of people in New Orleans, they would pull over their car, and not because he's a celebrity, yes, that too, but because he had this, he was the first person to point a finger and to really show America what was happening at a time when the 24-hour news cycle was saying these people are looters and violent criminals. Spike was saying, no, this is what really happened and is happening. And then he went back 5 years later to say, I hadn't forgotten you. And then came back again 20 years later to say, I know the circumstance hasn't changed for you. And that's why I'm still here for you. And so it's interesting. I say a lot that when the levees broke, I had liked documentaries before, but when the levees broke showed in the moment how you could effectuate change and how you can dispel all the myths if you make this other counter narrative. So it was wonderful to work with Spike. It was wonderful to work with Geeta, who was his editor and my business partner, and Sam Knowles, who's a young, brilliant, beautiful Black woman director.
It's fantastic. It is made for the screen. I'm so glad that you're here to chat with us. And I want to encourage all of our Leaders Learners listeners to check it out. It's already streaming on Netflix. The series is called Katrina, Come Hell and High Water. It's #1 in the U.S. for almost a week. Again, it's been getting rave reviews, and let's keep it going. Let's keep it at #1. It's a powerful look at not only what happened 20 years ago, but what hasn't changed. Thank you, Elisa Payne, for your work and your witness.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago is moving closer to approving a $90 million police corruption settlement. The City Council's Finance Committee signed off on the deal covering 176 civil rights suits tied to former CPD Sergeant Ronald Watts, who was Black and who was convicted of extorting residents in the Ida B. Wells housing complex. Escambia County, Florida commissioners will consider renaming a Myrtle Grove road after conservative host Charlie Kirk. Commissioner Mike Kohler proposed names like Charlie Kirk Way or Turning Point USA Road. Supporters call it fitting, but one community activist says it's insulting to the Black community. And an arrest has been made in the theft of unreleased Beyonce music in Atlanta. Police say Kelvin Evans broke into an SUV in July, stealing hard drives with unreleased tracks, show footage, and set lists. The stolen drives have not been recovered. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Hard rock style is coming to the Central Valley, just 30 minutes south of Bakersfield off Route 99. You'll find world-class gaming and entertainment. Less drive time equals more playtime. The all-new Hard Rock Casino Tejon, opening soon.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Rams coach Sean McVay made a surprise announcement Tuesday morning. McVay told reporters that he tore the plantar fascia muscle in his right foot during the Rams' victory Sunday at Tennessee. The The 39-year-old McVay said his injury was confirmed after an MRI exam on Monday. McVay suffered the injury while jogging down the sideline to get a referee's attention to call a timeout. McVay might have to wear a boot cast for a few weeks, but he is not expected to miss any games. The Rams are at Philadelphia on Sunday. Top 5 college football teams in this week's top 25 poll: Ohio State, Penn State, LSU, Miami, and Georgia. 2-1 Jackson State is the only HBCU team in this week's Division I AA poll. Jackson State is ranked 16th. Alcorn State had the highest attendance for an HBCU football game over the weekend. A crowd of 49,158 showed up for Alcorn's loss at Mississippi State. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Black voices, they matter here. And we've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're an African American mom who is pregnant or have a baby under 6 months old, you deserve care that lifts, listens, and lasts. Black Infant Health is for you. It's a free program with individual support, group sessions, and resources to start your mothering journey. BIH makes space for moms and their families to create community. Learn more about the programs in Los Angeles County. Check us out at blackinfanthealth.org.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hit me.
National news of consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to be in conversation with this brother right here, Andre Holland. He is the one of the stars of Love, Brooklyn. It's a film that opened on August 29th in New York. And guess what? It's expanded nationally. And we are so delighted to have you here with us. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. Look, a lot of folks might remember you from 42, from the hit film Selma in 2014, and even the Academy Award-winning film Moonlight. When I first learned about this project, Love Brooklyn, it made me think back to Moonlight because this is also a love story. And I wanted to ask you, how do you compare this Black love story with Moonlight? That was sort of a Black love story as well. in that, we saw Black tenderness on the
Mm,
screen.
mm.
And here you are again, and there we see Black tenderness on the screen.
Yes, what a great question. Two things come to mind for me. One, I think one thing that those two movies share is that they both were made for very little money and with very little time, but by a group of people, who really believed in one another. When I think about Moonlight, I don't think any of us anticipated that it would end up having the life and the impact that it did. Nobody. I mean, we were in a little camper van in Miami trying to just tell this story. And so the fact that it did what it did still blows my mind. And it's similar with Love Brooklyn. We shot it here in Brooklyn. Friends, relatives opened their homes, opened their cafes and restaurants in order to make it happen for us. All the cast are people that I know from school or who are just friends of mine who I called up and they said, "Man, I'll be there." So that kind of community aspect of it is another thing that they share. I think also the tenderness piece is true. Like when Moonlight came out, I feel like people were so shocked to see such an overt display of tenderness on screen between two Black people, Black men. And similarly with this movie, one of the things people have been saying is like, man, it's amazing that this movie doesn't rely on any kind of trauma or violence or, nobody's broke down and struggling. It's just Black people existing and relating to one another and living their lives. And in a way, that in and of itself feels kind of like quietly revolutionary, I think. Uh, so I think, yeah, there's something about us watching Black people show sides of themselves that sometimes the dominant culture don't think exist, but that we know do. So yeah, we really wanted to tap into that tenderness, that closeness, that community care, and also the confusion that I think we're all entitled to experience. You know, uh, yeah. So thank you for the question.
Say more about that. The confusion that you believe we're all entitled to experience. We know that Black trauma sells uh, in Hollywood. It sells books, and as you mentioned, this is a whole different vibe. This is a vibe that harkens back to the sort of Black rom-com era when we saw films like Love Jones and Love and Basketball, right?
Mhm.
And we know that the Black experience is it runs deep and wide. We are not a monolith, and neither are our stories.
Mhm.
But talk to us about what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, in this movie, what we find is this guy Roger, who's a writer. That's who I play, who is not to give it all away, but effectively he's been given this assignment by his editors to write this piece about Brooklyn called "The Evolving City," in which it's meant to be a feel-good piece where he talks about these new restaurant openings and these new bars, and everybody should come to Brooklyn. Um, But what he's experiencing himself as a resident of the neighborhood is something wildly different. He is seeing the gentrification that's happening at light speed. He's seeing the erasure. He's seeing the displacement. And he wants to express that, right? So there's a tension, I think, between like as an artist, between what he's been asked to do and what he feels he should be doing. At the same time, he's at a place in his life where he's, in his early 40s. Culture tells us we should have figured things out, like dating and romance and relationship by now. And yet he's confused about how to move forward as an artist. And he's also confused about what he wants this next chapter of his life to look like from a romantic sense. And I think that sense of like that place of still trying to figure it out for himself, that liminal kind of uncertain, vulnerable place is one that I really wanted to expose in this movie because it's something that I think we all experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have all the answers, and I don't think we have to have all of the answers all the time. So yeah, I wanted to put a lens on that kind of vulnerability.
And speaking of vulnerability, look, it's not easy for anybody to be vulnerable. And certainly, Black men don't have a monopoly on that, but, we have our own challenges in terms of vulnerability. Talk to us about how this film acts as a commentary, a modern commentary on Black men and romance.
Yeah, I think that I mean it's complicated. What's been interesting is that a lot of I mean, first of all, we didn't want this to be a movie where it was a black man trying to choose between these two women, right? So we worked hard to not have it be that. Uh, at the same time, we did want to tell the truth about the fact that there are people who find themselves in these kinds of situationships, these kinds of complicated, messy dynamics. Um, and it's been interesting to see the reactions to people who have seen the movie. Some folks come out and say, "Man, Roger was my character was a mess. He was such a, I knew a dude just like that, and he just like a, man." That would, and then other people come out and say, "Actually, I can understand that he himself is evolving." And that reaction is the one that I really love because by the end of the movie, where Roger gets to, and again, not to give it away, but where he arrives at is a place in which, for the first time in his life, he's ready to start the work of sitting with himself and really thinking about who he actually is and what it is that's gotten him to the place where he finds himself. Why this pattern keeps showing up in his life, right? And he doesn't have it figured out by the end, but he's at the beginning of it, and it's only in relationship with another human being, played by DeWanda Wise, that he's able to do that work. So I think we see, in a subtle way, how relationships, right, can actually help people heal, or help people start to do the work of healing. I really dig that. It doesn't answer all the questions about what a modern day relationship should look like, but I think it does leave us with a very clear message of one must do that kind of quiet inner work in order to be in healthy relationship with anyone.
Look, I want to double click on that as somebody who has been married for 10 years and in a relationship for 16 years. I can tell you that relationship, so much of it is holding up a mirror. It's
Mm-hmm.
holding up a mirror, and constantly asking you, is this who you want to be?
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
and being with somebody who communicates that you are enough, can make a big difference in doing that inside work. Um, I want to talk a little bit about your role, not just as an actor, but as a producer, because you're actor and producer on this. And so, how do you balance the demands of, being one of the stars of the film and also being a producer on the film?
That was the biggest challenge. I'll be honest with you, man. It was tough. It was tough. Yeah, we had a lot of challenges on the production, from getting the movie financed in the first place. It took us years to get it together. So that was a challenge. And then, as a producer, you're kind of responsible for everything. So anytime anything goes wrong, I'm the person, that they're gonna call. Fortunately, we had a great team of producers. Patrick Wengler was with us, Maurice Anderson, Kate Sharp, and Lisa Zisman. We had a really strong team, so we were able to kind of hold the ship together. Um, but it was difficult to be on set and be thinking in the morning about, okay, you know, did we pay for this location, and is the insurance in order, and how many background did we call in today, and is the catering gonna be on time? And then looking around and seeing the director Rachel say, okay, action, and then having to drop into the actual scene. It was a lot, but I really enjoyed it, man, and I'm so proud of the movie that we made, and seeing the way that people, but in particular Black people, have been reacting to this has, man, it's been so affirming, so affirming.
I really appreciate you keeping it real, because there are a lot of people out there that, say, "Oh, I act, I produce, I'm a triple threat, all of that." But, it's not easy. People may make it look easy or sound easy, but it's not easy. It is a balancing act, but definitely worthwhile. Also, in the film, I noticed that your best friend in the film is played by Roy Wood Jr., who's no stranger to a More Perfect Union. He's been on the show before. Talk to us about, what it was like working with Roy in a sort of non-comedic role, as I understand it.
Man, Roy is so dope. Roy is amazing. We both are from Alabama, from Birmingham, and so we've kind of known each other for a long time now. And he's another person that, he's the only person I thought of when we thought about this part. And so I called him, and I thought, man, he probably ain't gonna do it, but he ended up saying yes right away before I could even get the words out my mouth. And it turned out that what he ended up saying as we started to talk about the project and read through the scenes was, it's like, man, I often get sent things where people want me to do the thing I've always done. That kind of broader comedy that gets people laughing. He's like, but I really want to do something that's more grounded, where I get to show my acting chops. And I think he does a really great job in this movie. And in a way, in this picture, like, so many people got a chance to do things that they don't do or they hadn't done before. Rachel Holder, who's our director, it's her first feature. And I think she did a great job with it, and it's my first time playing a romantic lead, which is something I wanted to do. Nicole Bahari and DeWanda Wise have both said multiple times that they're getting to play characters that they never would have imagined. Same with Roy. Everybody got a chance to try something. I'm producing really, still pretty early in my producing career. So it really, I think, like, there's the story of the movie, which is really cool. There's the story of the community coming together to help make the movie. And then there's this kind of meta narrative of us all evolving ourselves, in our own artistry and in the things that we think we're capable of doing.
So, look, this is a film that I think is going to age very, very well. It was definitely giving Love Joan vibes. Were you inspired by the character of Darius from Love Jones in any sort of way? Because I couldn't help but think about Lorenz Tate playing Darius and you playing Roger, and I was suddenly comparing them in my head.
Yeah, I definitely was inspired by that. I watched it multiple times as we were preparing to do it. I even talked to Ted. We're kind of buddies a little bit. Ted, the director of that movie. And in fact, there was a scene that I pitched. There was a scene I pitched to the director and to the team. I was like, man, we need to get into like a little cafe where like there's a bunch of Black folks and we vibing, and like let's get into the inner kind of like inside of Brooklyn and go to Lovers Rock or go to one of these places and shoot inside of there and get a sense of what the community feels like when they really come together. And of course we couldn't afford to do that, but maybe for the next one, part 2, we'll get a chance to do something like that.
Well, it's really incredible. It's really incredible. Thank you for sharing just sort of this side of Brooklyn. You mentioned earlier in our conversation the gentrification happening in Brooklyn and lightning speed. I think you live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, right?
I do indeed. Yep. I'm right in the middle of it, man. And it's like, we started working on this movie in 2019. And now, 6 years later, it's almost unrecognizable, what's happening here. Tompkins Avenue, which is where was kind of like the kind of heartbeat of the neighborhood for a while. We had places like Bedvine, Lovers Rock, spots where Black folks would gather, in the daytime, at nighttime, and they were like neighborhood staples. Both of those places are now gone. A number of other places are gone, and they're being replaced by, different kinds of things. And so a lot of people in this neighborhood are struggling to figure out what does it mean to live here anymore? And like, what do we have to hold on to? What kind of spaces do we have where we can gather? And there's like a quiet movement of folks who are organizing to try to figure out how we can hold on to some of the culture and the community and the vibes that made this place so special.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least like to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. S&P volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an S&P open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit caspvolunteer.org.
Hey, KBLA 1580 delegation, your health matters to us. We know that information is power, especially when it comes to prevention and treatment. That's why we're proud to introduce the brand new KBLA Health and Wellness Hub. This online space is built just for you, connecting our community to trusted health resources, culturally relevant care, and even access to diverse clinical trials and emerging therapies. Whether you're looking for information on common conditions, mental health support, or just want to stay on top of your wellness journey, we got you. And the best part, it's all on our website at KBLA1580.com. Accessible, empowering, community-focused. So just go to KBLA1580.com and click on the Health and Wellness Hub icon, because knowledge is power and your health is everything. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. Let's preserve black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Notable journalists, industry leaders, lawmakers, change makers, tastemakers, and you, working to build a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
Andre, in our remaining minutes, I want to give you a chance to just sort of talk about your body of work and to do a look back and a look forward. It's very clear to me and to a lot of your fans that, you know, you have a knack for wanting to tell black stories. Whether we're talking about, again, you know, Jackie Robinson in 42, we're talking about civil rights leaders in Selma, you know, and some of the characters from Moonlight, Academy Award-winning film Moonlight, can't leave that out. You have really launched an incredible career telling black stories. Is that more important to you now than ever, given the political climate in this country and around the world?
It is. it's always been important to me, and now I feel like it's more necessary than ever. You know, there was that window of time a few years ago where it seemed as if the doors were going to open and that we were going to be able to have greater visibility and opportunity. But it seems pretty clear to me now that that all has been foreclosed on, and you know, we're kind of on our own again. And so I think if these stories are going to exist, and I adamantly believe that they should, we got to figure out a way to do that ourselves. I love, you know, our stories. There's so many that we haven't even told. We hadn't even scratched the surface. I got upstairs in my office, man, I got a list of 25 stories that I have in development that I'm working on. And that's just me. And I know so many other people who have amazing stories that they want to tell about us. And so I want to have my production company, you know, that's one of the reasons I'm so committed to it. I want it to be a place where I can tell these stories that I want to tell. But more importantly, we can be a space where other people who want to tell stories can come and trust that those stories will be taken care of, you know, and that they have a chance to get made. So yeah, I'm really interested in figuring out new ways, new models that we can get things made, get them distributed, get them marketed, and find audiences. Because I know Black people love these stories, and not just Black folks. People love these stories. So yeah, man, I want my career to continue to be one that my parents can be proud of, that my community can be proud of, and that, you know, hopefully when it's all over with, I can look back and say, man, I'm proud of the work that I did on behalf of the culture.
Well, on behalf of the culture, let me say, keep making us proud. Our thanks to Andre Holland, one of the stars of Love Brooklyn. We want to encourage all of our leaders, learners, and listeners to check it out. It opened Friday, August 29th in New York, but guess what? Now it's expanded nationally, and you can even see it right here in Los Angeles at the Limley Theater starting on September 5th. And so our thanks to Andre and the team. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. We love it.
Thank you, man. Love y'all. Appreciate you.
My thanks to both of my guests this hour, Elisa Payne, the executive producer and showrunner of that incredible Netflix film on Hurricane Katrina, Run, Don't Walk, to check that out. Also, Andre Holland, the actor and producer behind Love Brooklyn. Let's continue to do our part to make sure that these wonderful films stay at the top of the charts. We'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, Brother Andy, our show producers, Faraji, Art, and Journey, and each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. We curate the show for you each and every day, whether I am in studio in LA or sitting right here at the White House and everywhere in between. Remember, don't panic, organize, do what you can from where you are with what you have, but by all means, do something. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown and 21 others are backing D.C.'s lawsuit against Trump's deployment of National Guard troops. In an amicus brief, they argue the move is unconstitutional and political theater. Brown says the Guard is meant for emergencies, not routine policing, and urged the court to block